So the sharing it the first time with him was huge for me. And it still took a long time for me to ever, talk with anyone else about it. There's been times when I wanted to, but, like Rhonda way back, I don't even know when it was, must have been in the 90s, early 90s, she had come to our church, the one that my pastor was at. I really wanted to be able to, help, but I was still too afraid and too ashamed and guilt-ridden to ever think about doing that. So my pastor just met with me and helped me to be able to forgive myself and to try to understand God's love and God's forgiveness for me. And I was like 20, must have been 28 or 29 by then when I first started, because it was after my youngest daughter was born. So I started, realizing that I wasn't bound by, this didn't define who I was, that I could be forgiven for. And I think it was probably easier to understand God loving me and forgiving me than being able to forgive myself for a while, But as I, grew in my understanding and knowledge of God, I realized that I can't hold on to this. I need to share it. I mean, it took me a long time before I ever did because, the opportunities aren't just, hey, I want to tell my story, let me tell you what I've done. And I suppose part of it is meeting my husband now. He's a pastor, and he's always, encouraging people to, step out of their comfort zone. And me being his wife, well, actually, it was before we got married. We went to Haiti. He has a friend down there, has a church, and so he wanted me to give my testimony in Haiti. The first time I've ever given my testimony in my life. We weren't even married yet. I'm not sure how he talked me into that, but so I did, and I talked about, all of my traumas that I have incurred, and I shared about, having an abortion, and I had an interpreter through that, but it felt freeing, and the feedback, even though they speak a different language, just the love and acceptance that I felt by just sharing my struggle. Because I don't know if you know anything about Haiti, but they are, I don't have abortion down there, but they have just a lot of, like one gal I talked to had 27 siblings. The men, it's just like, go have babies. That's their sign of manhood. So they just have a lot of struggle there. And so women have struggles. And so it just was, met with a lot of understanding and love and care. And so it just felt like a burden was lifted off of me, and so I just started, I guess, understanding and really feeling God's love and forgiveness and care for me, and the realization that He can use. I never understood that passage, God uses all things for the good. That's my pastor's favorite verse. But I started understanding what that meant, that He can use even the bad choices we make in our lives. He can use them for His good. So A few years ago, I mean, I've shared in our small groups, like women's groups and stuff, I've shared, some of my struggles and, as testimony and getting acceptance and, love in return for just, people say you're brave, but to me it's not that I like to public speak, but I just feel like it's something that God can use and hopefully use. Maybe somebody needs to hear it, and because I used to think you don't go to church until you're all, perfectly put together. And I think it still goes on in church, even as evolved as we are, I think that people still think, well, you don't want to, you want to still hide your imperfections, No perfect people allowed, but we want to present ourselves as perfect. And I think it's important, especially being a pastor's wife, that people know that, God can use anybody. He can use me from, all of the bad choices that I've made in my life. And how did I marry a pastor? I'm still not sure about that one. But, I can see where God He wants to use that, and He wants to use me. And I think that it's important for people to see that all pastors' wives aren't all just, these perfect little pictures of spirituality. I have a niece that in Petoskey that called me and wanted me to share my story at her youth group a few years ago. It was probably 5 years ago now. And, that was a little scary, but I did it, I wasn't sure what to expect, just like this, but I could sense in the group that there were a lot of girls crying, and I believe that they probably were maybe struggling, maybe had one themselves, or, going through something, It was hard because they're all friends, so, they didn't. And it was boys too. Maybe if it wasn't boys in there, it would have been different. There were people ask questions, but I could just sense that there were a few that were in some pain, So I was appreciative of just having that opportunity to share and hopefully maybe change someone, path or help them through, a path, you just don't know. I've shared my testimony at church and, it feels like people aren't quite sure what to make of someone who has done all of these things and made all of these bad choices, from drugs to you name it. It's been part of my life, and I can say it's not part of my life now, and I'm thankful for that. And the only thing that I can say is that's God's work in my life, that I'm not still on that path that would be, very destructive.